Children. Well, raising a child can be a challenge, as many of us know. Usually it's parents that are responsible, but these days the responsibility is a bit wider. We see grandparents having a huge responsibility for children and some co-parenting arrangements, but it can be a very rewarding job. We all want to raise Beaut kids, children who are well-behaved, polite, happy, loving and secure in themselves. The problem is we have to face up to our own shortcomings as parents every day. Mark the Messurier is a teacher, counsellor. He's a coach to young people and their parents, and he's author of 9 parenting publications. His latest is Raising Beaut Kids, which he co-authored with Bill Hansbury, and he's in the studio now. Mark, lovely to see you. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you so much for having me, Deb.
Now, you very kindly said that you will take calls. Our phone number is 1300 222 891. Be quick if you want to catch Mark. Mark, I'm loving your book, Raising Beaut Kids.
Good.
It's an eye-opener because the one thing I think all parents find out that when you have children, it actually triggers a stage in your own growth because you have to face up to a lot of things about yourself, your own anxieties, your own temperament, your own issues, and it's not always a pleasant experience.
It's so not. And I guess that's the journey that both Bill and I go on with so many of our clients that we work with. It's like looking in the mirror. It's like an education on a deeply personal level that you never thought that you'd encounter. We can seem to operate in the workplace, and we can actually keep those hidden buttons of our frailties and anxieties well away from other people, and we can cope well. We get home, the doors are closed, the windows are closed, something goes wrong, and we lose it. Or we become really obsessed about our child's future, their resilience. Will they cope? Because we're fearful for them.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's very possible, in fact, probable, you'd probably say, that as parents, sometimes the way we react to our children is more about us than about them.
Yes, it sure is. Bill and I, when we work with clients at Fullerton House, we often sit with clients and give them one piece of homework after they go away. And certainly for me, I see a number of parents whose children I've never met, and they just come in to talk through operating from a restorative window, which we place in the book as a parenting style. And one of the bits of homework that I'll often give them is go away. When things get a bit tense, when things don't go well, lower your voice and whisper. And when they come back, they'll go, I thought that was the stupidest bit of advice ever, but we did try it, Mark. And we were the ones making the noise. We were the catalyst for our daughter or our son actually standing up to us and making a whole lot more noise.
Well, if you're yelling, you can't expect your child not to mirror what you're doing and yell back. In fact, they might be mirroring our behaviours rather than initiating the behaviour themselves.
Exactly, Deb.
Well, I thought it was really helpful in the beginning of your book, in the introduction, really, to learn about the different parenting styles. I think we probably straddle across all of them at times, but would you mind walking us through the 4 different styles there are? There's parents who do it to kids, which is being called the punitive style. What are the hallmarks of that?
So, punitive parents want a high level of control, but in fact, when you look at that bottom axis, a fairly low level of compassion and nurturing at difficult times. So these parents would come in heavy-handed, quite a bit of shouting, a really tough, perhaps being grounded for 10 years over actually turning a screen on when you shouldn't have. So very heavy-handed approach, low on the feelings and the response side, big on keeping things under control.
Okay, so that's the punitive. What about parents who don't do it on the other extreme, which you've said can be neglectful?
Do you know, and we've got to be really careful about judging parents. I mean, I'm hoping the book that Bill and I have put together is just a really sensible guide for parents to then look at their own personal situation, their own temperament, and then go from there. But I guess neglectful, we've all been neglectful for moments. You know, when we've done things with our kids all weekend, and then they want more. And then we might blow up, or we just might walk away and not attend to their needs. Now, whether that's for a moment or whatever, that is kind of neglectful. That's the box that we've got to. And then for me, I do meet a range of parents who are operating in a neglectful mode because their lives are difficult, because they're under huge financial pressures, because they've actually recently separated and it's really bitter. And they haven't got the energy or the time to actually be with their kids and continue nurturing and parenting them in a leadership style.
And I mean, you could have situations also where parents are suffering from a severe mental illness or a substance abuse problem,
absolutely,
which takes them away from their kids as well.
Yeah, completely.
Well, that's that window. What about parents who do it with kids, which has been called the authoritative model?
The authoritative model is really the one that we're promoting through the book, and it's one where you understand that you want to lead your children's behaviours in certain directions, but equally you want to maintain a good relationship. So this is about connecting yourself with your child, maintaining a relationship, but still actually, just like a punitive parent is attempting to do, still actively working on a high level of control. But you might not get the control immediately that the shouting, or that you convince yourself that the shouting actually brings. It's a work in progress. So it's a combination of building great relationship and using techniques that keeps children's dignity, that you keep your own dignity, and you chip away and you work away in the direction that you want to go.
Which is the one of the four models that is the one I think we should most try to aspire towards. But there is another which is pretty much the opposite. Yeah. It's parents who overdo it, the permissive parent.
The permissive window is a really interesting window, and sometimes I'm asked, are parents becoming more permissive today? And there is just no way I'd go yes, because I think there are just so many different sorts of parents with different kinds of attitudes and values, and we move around those boxes, and I don't necessarily think that there are trends. Perhaps parents may have been more punitive a few years ago, but I'm sure we had terribly good restorative parents a few years ago too.
Yes, well, that's right. I can recognise myself in all of them, depending on the time. And, of course, those four possible parenting styles aren't based on what you think you're like, but, in fact, what your child experiences.
Yes, it's how somebody would observe you. So, for example, if you're a punitive parent, what a teacher might observe at school is that you're always making excuses for your child, that you will never, ever let your child face up to a simple, straightforward consequence in order for them to begin to understand the impact they've had on others. Or at home, you'll be making excuses for your child's behaviour. And suddenly, when you get to the end of your tether, the interesting thing about these windows is the permissive parent jumps into the punitive box. I'm over it. So you'll often get that jump between those two boxes.
Even though they appear to be completely opposite, you can certainly be the same person.
Yes.
Well, as we said, probably the most effective of those types of parenting for raising Beaut kids would be the authoritative role, where you are trying to certainly exercise control over the children, but in a way that is inclusive of them, is not punishing them, and is hoping to build up their confidence.
Yes. Yeah. A parent who becomes skilled at catching good behaviours, because we know that if we catch the good behaviours, the behaviours that we value, kids fall into line. Behaviour that is rewarded actually continues. That's problematic, because yelling at your child because you're frazzled or because they keep hopping up and down from the dinner table, that's actually rewarding their behaviour.
Because whether it's good or bad, they're getting your attention.
That's right.
Kids want your attention.
They don't differentiate. They'll still take it. Yeah, they will.
Yeah, like if you think, oh, Dad's not giving me much attention, but every time I get up from the table, I get his full attention.
Yeah, and he's with me. And we all know, most of us, Dad loves me to bits, but I am getting his time, I am getting his attention. Yes.
So, I mean, it is a struggle for us, because good intentions, I read through your book and I think, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. But they can fly out the window, can't they, in moments of high stress?
Yeah.
And I imagine that children aren't very receptive to what we're telling them when we're telling them because we're incredibly frustrated or we're angry or we're upset ourselves.
Oh, and Deb, the best place to start here, my mentor is a psychologist by the name of Lindy Peterson, and I think she's a wonderful person and a wonderful psychologist. And I remember her giving me a real pearl of wisdom, which I've printed in the book. When things go wrong, it would be a really good idea that we actually address our child the way we'd address our best friend's child.
That is excellent. I read that in the book, and how amazing is that? We would never think to yell as a first response to somebody else's child.
No.
We would always try and be empathetic and compassionate, yet we can forget to do that with our own kids.
That's right, and we'd simply offer them a reminder. We might go the next step and offer them a possible consequence if they can't do the right thing, but it would be very respectful.
That is an excellent, excellent suggestion. Treat your kids like your best friend's child. We're talking to Mark Messurier, teacher, counsellor, coach to young people and parents. He's author of several publications, but his latest is Raising Beaut Kids. That's what we're talking about now, which he co-authored with Bill Hansbury. If you'd like to speak to Mark, only a very short window in which to do so, you'd need to call through on 1300 222 891. We've had some texts through on 0467 922 891, Mark. One says, best way to be a parent, not their best friend. What do you say about that?
I think that's a real learning journey, isn't it, for lots of us? We do want to forge a great relationship with our kids, particularly as they get older. But certainly when you look at emotional development within our kids, just brain development generally, it's very hard for them to actually take our leadership when in fact we've been on the same level with them all the time. I think great friendship can emerge, and it can emerge quite quickly once kids understand that you love them, you're compassionate, you want to have a strong relationship with them, but also, bottom line is, you do lead.
Yes, and you have to take those tough decisions, and children aren't always going to like them.
No.
Or like you for making them, even.
No, that's right.
Martin from Salisbury did mirror that issue on children as friends. Somebody else says, if I can just find it, the aim of good parenthood should be not be perfect children, but perfect adults.
Yeah, that's really a good thing to springboard off, because one of the things that Bill and I would hate parents to get a message that you need to be a perfect parent. None of us are perfect. I mean, I think the most precious things about us as human beings is that we're on this continuing journey towards some possible perfection whenever. And it's a constant challenge. So the book isn't promoting that you need to be robotic, that you need to show no emotion in tense times. The book is actually promoting be natural, be normal. Here's a really good guide, but apply your own personality and style to it.
Well, it's funny, everything you just said is kind of picked up in this text message from Jane. It says, parenting our 3 children is the most challenging thing I've ever done. It's relentless. You need to pick yourself up and do things when you don't feel like it, you don't have time, or you're just plain tired. Leading by example is critical, but also being yourself and appreciating that we are not perfect. Hard work, but definitely worth it. My kids are 14 and 11, says Jane.
Yeah, go Jane. Yeah. Oh, I just completely agree with Jane. You just can do the best that you can do. And life has these ebbs and flows, doesn't it? Sometimes you're in a good space and you can deal with lots of things well. And at other times you're just overwhelmed. But your kids get that. Yeah. The other thing too, I think, about a restorative parent is that you can blow up. You can lose it. And the next day you can sit down with them when they're in a good space and you're in a good space, and you can go, did you notice what I did yesterday? That was not great modelling. And it's a lovely thing to do, whether you've got a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old, to pitch it to them at their appropriate level. I think that's a wonderful thing, because it means mum and dad aren't perfect, and mum and dad won't turn my imperfections, because I will do wobblies, into sins.
And the thing is, it would be frightening for children when parents lose it, and children know when parents have lost the plot. So it's nice to fess up and say, sorry, I did.
Absolutely.
Look, there are so many things in your book I would like to touch on, and we're just not going to have time to get to them with the limited time we've got, but can I touch on a couple?
Yeah.
Tantrums, one of the worst aspects of problem behaviour that parents have to deal with is tantrums. They're often very public. They're often very embarrassing.
Yes.
Can you give us a few tips on that?
You're right. They often are public because they hold you to ransom. They're messy. They're embarrassing. There's often no smooth clinical way to deal with a tantrum, but basically try not to let your emotion buy into it. Just make it really matter of fact. Let them know what they need to do. And then if it's in public, if they're small enough, pick them up, whisk them away, ask for some support, get them out of the public eye, because then they haven't got an audience to tantrum to. I've got parents who I work with that in the shopping mall will simply say to their daughter or their son, you need some time. Actually, I need some time. I'm going to go and sit on that seat over there because that behaviour is attracting so much attention. I don't want to be here right next to you, but I won't go away. So I think try not to buy into it. And the other thing that sounds perhaps a bit harsh, but after the tantrum and when everything settles down, it's probably a really good idea to very briefly revisit it. And if you think it's necessary for a straightforward negative consequence, it's probably the best way to go.
I mean, they can be truly shocking experiences, can't they? They can be violent. They can be extremely distressing, not just for the child, but for the parent and for anybody in the vicinity. They're really quite extreme edges of child behaviour.
Yeah. And I hate to put the idea in people's mind that if you do not get a tantrum under control early, they will continue on forever. They won't. They're often phases that kids go through. Again, it gets back to brain changes, kids feeling like they have more autonomy, more authority, and they want to test the boundaries. It's just hold the line gently.
Hold the line gently. Take that deep breath and go to the other advice that you gave to us early on. Whisper. When you feel like shouting, decide to whisper. I'm going to use that one myself, Mark. Thank you very much. Look, we're just about out of time, so we're just not going to get to the other issue that I wanted to talk to you about, which was manners, because manners are very important for setting up our whole life ahead, and they can be diminishing, but we're just not going to get there today. But I'm sure you'll be back here in the studio to talk about that another time. But just to resolve the last couple of SMSs, be the captain of your ship, says one listener. Let the children know they're in safe hands and deal with all things with love. That's a great advice.
I love that. That's great.
And talking, someone asks, are you the Mark Lemessurier who was a teacher at Crafers Primary in 1983?
That is me.
There you go. So you've got a pupil out there listening to you. Well, Mark, it's been a great pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for coming in. It's a great book, I can say, from having read through it. I hope you and Bill have great success with it, and we've really enjoyed chatting about it this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Mark Lemessurier, teacher, counsellor, coach to young people and parents, co-author of the new book Raising Beaut Kids with Bill Hansberry.